some help. Yeah, this PROVEL is out of control, dude.
Hi. Pizza. I got the pizza. So I've lived in St. Louis for 8 years and I've only had the pizza here like 3 times ever. If you had asked me 2 weeks ago what I thought about it, I would have said, it's disgusting. I don't want anything to do with it. It's a controversial style. That's why most people either love it or they hate it. And until recently, I didn't understand what there was to like about it. But to get to the bottom of this, we went to ground zero. We went to the original square Beyond Compare Emos to get the classic St. Louis style to see what about it is good and if I can improve on it. So I'm gonna take this home, we're gonna eat it. I'll see you there. So it's really heavy on the toppings, which I love. That kind of defines this bar style pizza, but St. Louis style specifically is 2 things really. It's a really thin crackery crust and it's topped with this cheese, which is called PROVEL. If you're unfamiliar, PROVEL is a super weird industrial cheese that is a bunch of other cheeses kind of Frankensteined together. It's got a really weird grip on your mouth. It feels kind of like nacho cheese meets American cheese, but we're gonna get into that as we go. PROVEL is its own weird thing that needs to be addressed. So to get started on this cracker style pizza dough, I'm gonna grab my food processor and into that measure 225 grams of all-purpose flour, 3 grams of salt, 5 grams of baking powder, and 35 grams of olive oil. Next, the top goes on this food processor, and now I'm gonna start to bring that together by streaming in 120 grams of warm water, and that's gonna take about 15 to 20 seconds running on high speed to ball up and fully come together like this. And you might be asking yourself at this point, hey Bri, where is the yeast in this pizza dough? And I know it's weird, but traditional St. Louis style pizza, to the best of my knowledge, uses baking powder as the only leavening agent. This is gonna make the crust even more crackery, and it's gonna be like a wheat thin under there. Once that's all together, I flip the dough out of the chopper and onto my work surface so that I can knead it to finish building up the gluten. This move is gonna be a simple push and roll back and forth for about 2 minutes. Developing this strength is gonna be important for such a thin crusted pizza. It's gonna allow us to stretch it out super thin without things tearing apart. Once I've got a little round of dough here, now I'm gonna grab my gram scale and divide it into 2 equal sized pieces that are roughly 185 grams each. I'm gonna shape these into uniform pieces real quick so that they're easier to stretch later on. To do that, I'm just gonna fold the dough over itself a few times in an attempt to create a closed seam on the bottom. I'm gonna press it down from there to close that seam even more, and there we go. Hopefully if we close things up properly, the bottom is not gonna tear a hole into the whole pizza when we roll it out. After both of these balls are shaped and pressed down, now we're gonna transfer these over to a little baby sheet tray and wrap them up with plastic wrap. And that's it. Cracker pizza dough is now made and ready to rip. Next, for the pizza sauce, I've got 2 off-the-shelf tomato items here. One is pureed tomatoes and the other is tomato paste. For this style of pizza, I think an uncooked sauce is best. So for that, we're gonna measure 1 whole 28-ounce can of tomato puree, 60 grams of tomato paste, 12 grams of sugar, 10 grams of salt, 1 gram of garlic powder, 1 gram of onion powder, 1 gram of oregano, 1 gram of basil, and 1 gram of chili flakes. Next, I'm gonna grab my immersion blender and spin everything up to make a smooth, kind of sweet, kind of thick pizza sauce. In the St. Louis style, the sauce and the cheese commingle into a tomato, gooey, gloppy cheese thing, and having a thick and simple sauce is gonna be our best bet. Also, this batch size makes 4 pizzas because I like to use the whole can of tomato puree instead of it just sitting half full in my fridge. I'll freeze the half of this sauce that I'm not using for when I want pizza in the future, which is gonna be very soon. So to finish off the big 3 of dough, sauce, and cheese, we need to talk about PROVEL finally. As a refresher, this is a processed cheese. It's made of Swiss, provolone, and cheddar. They chop it all up, emulsify it back together with some sodium citrate, extrude it like a noodle, and boom, you've got PROVEL. It melts at a really low temperature, and that is the thing that makes St. Louis style pizza. Today, we're gonna be making 2 pizzas, one with a classic PROVEL to see how we like it, and one with a more chefy from scratch version that tries to replicate those flavors. So for that, I bought chunks of Swiss cheese, mild white cheddar, provolone, which are the traditional add-ins for PROVEL, and then my own addition of full fat mozzarella to actually make it taste good, basically. Now, I'm gonna be grating all 4 of these on the largest hole sides of my box grater, and we're going for about equal parts here, or 75 grams of each cheese. Once these are all grated, we're gonna give them a toss and a sniff to see how they stack up to the PROVEL. Okay, the cheese is done, now we gotta talk toppings. For me, a St. Louis style pizza is essentially a crackery, gooey vehicle for lots of toppings that is meant to be shared with your buddies in a bar. And after talking with quite a few natives of St. Louis and the guys on the phone and emos, the classic combo I think is... Hi, can I get a bacon, sausage, onions, and green bell peppers, please? Small. Thanks. So to get started, we're gonna make some sausage. For that, I've got 1 pound of fatty ground pork here, and I've mixed in 7 grams of salt, 5 grams of sugar, 5 grams of paprika, 1 gram of dried sage, 2 grams of black pepper, 5 grams of red wine vinegar, 2 grams of chili flake, 2 grams of crushed fennel seed, and 1 clove of garlic that I ran through my garlic press. The full recipe will be in the description here, and take a look. Now we've got hot, delicious Italian sausage, very fresh. Mucho recommend making your own. Now for the bacon, I'm gonna take 1 pound of thick cut stuff and lay it out on a wired rack on a sheet tray and bake it in a 350-degree oven until it's well rendered and just starting to take on some color like this. In general, this is an excellent way to cook your bacon. Most restaurants do it this way and then throw it on the griddle to crisp it up or put it on your hamburger later on. Now, once all that bacon is cooled off, we're gonna come back and cut it into some nice chunky pieces like this. From there, we're gonna scoop the bacon into a pint container and set it aside so that we can move on to the veggie part of this pizza. And for that, I've just got a pint each of thinly sliced onions and green bell peppers. Now, all that our toppings are sorted out, we're gonna preheat the oven to 500 degrees Fahrenheit and double check for your ratty ass pizza stone. Got that. So let's take a look back at our pizza dough. As you can see, these are not well risen, buoyant, or alive. They're the exact same size as they were before. They're just more rested, more relaxed, ready to get stretched. So we're gonna flip one of these out onto our cutting board and we're gonna flour both sides well to prevent stickage. Then we're gonna press it out a little bit with the tips of our fingers into a roughly 8-inch circle. And from there, now I'm gonna grab my rolling pin, flour that, and roll this thing out. I wanna drive home that things need to be well floured here. We're gonna be rolling this pizza dough really thin, and the more we stretch it, the more tacky and eventually stuck it will get to the board unless things are well lubed up with flour. As you can see, I turned this 90 degrees at some point to get a more even stretch, and once this is at about 10 inches across, we're gonna work the edges to get them a little thinner. In doing the R&D for this pizza, I never got the pizza that thin around the edge, and this dough is definitely not something you wanna eat when rolled thick. It's not gonna be crisp, it's gonna be kind of chewy and tough. And now that we're fully stretched out, I'm gonna grab my tape measure to check the size. I'm looking for 14 inches edge to edge. That's just a little bit smaller than my pizza stone. It's gonna fit perfectly. Now, I'm gonna slide this onto a well-floured pizza peel and start to build this pizza. The first thing going down here is gonna be my pizza sauce, and I'm gonna spread that edge to edge. Just be careful not to get any under the pizza skin because that's gonna get stuck to the peel and it's gonna be a mess. Behind that, I'm gonna hit this with some PROVEL cheese, but be careful. You don't wanna go too heavy here, and that's because I know from a direct experience. Let's cut to an earlier pizza in the R&D process here where I put way too much PROVEL cheese on it, combined with the tomato sauce to make an ooey gooey nightmare. Basically, it ran off the sides of the pizza, then ran into the floor of my oven, and I totally had to start over, turn my oven off, completely scrape my pizza stone. So just a quick PSA here, kids, be careful. This stuff is no joke. Behind that PROVEL, we're gonna hit this with a generous amount of Italian sausage. You really wanna go big here. Again, this pizza is all about the toppings. Behind that, we're gonna hit with some green bell pepper and then some thinly sliced onions, and then finally some bacon. I'm putting probably about a half pound of bacon on each pizza. And oh yeah, don't forget about the Parmesan. We're gonna come back with a liberal amount of that and totally cover the top of this pizza. This thing looks beautiful before I've even cooked it. It's green and white and yellow, pink and red all at the same time. And now I'm gonna load it into a 550-degree oven and bake it for about 10 minutes. After that 10 minutes, now we can really see what people love about this pizza. It's gooey looking, it's full of toppings, it looks delicious, it smells really weird and savory, and I'm really excited to eat it. But before I do that, I'm gonna bake off a second pie with my PROVEL blend, the 2.0 version, so we can taste these pizzas side by side. I wanna mention the first pizza is sitting on a wire rack to stay crisp while we cook pizza number 2. If it were to sit on a cutting board or a sheet tray for too long, that crackeriness, that crispness would definitely steam away, and we want to avoid that as much as possible. But let's get back to pizza number 2 here. I'm going to load this into my preheated 550-degree oven and bake it for 10 minutes just like the first one. After that 10 minutes, let's take a look. As you can see, it still has that super crackery thin crust, and the aroma of all these aged cheeses has combined with the tomato sauce. It just smells amazing. Before we eat these things, let's take a close-up look at each pizza. This is the first one we made, again with that store-bought PROVEL, and you can see the difference here in the cheeses. It's a little gooier, and that tomato sauce and cheese thing is really combined into one super sauce. It's totally wacky. And if you look at the second pizza, it looks a little bit more traditional looking as far as the cheese melt goes here, but it's clear that either of these pizzas are going to be totally delicious. Either one would be perfect in any blues hockey bar or sports bar somewhere deep in St. Louis County. This is a dignified pizza. The tavern style is something to be proud of, and I'm so stoked to try these next to each other. Let's eat these things. All right, we've got the classic PROVEL style pizza here, and then the B-Man's Blend sort of PROVEL 2.0 over here. So let's give them a try. It's like a total cracker. It just breaks right in half. It's awesome. Delicious, ooey, gooey. Now for the Mott's pizza. Anyways, I think both of these pizzas are a pure delight. Thin and crispy is the way I play most of the time. If you want the traditional St. Louis style with that sort of stick to your mouth, you have to go with the classic PROVEL. There is something inherently really excellent about that. Don't let anybody tell you that it's not good, because it totally rips. But if you're not in St. Louis, Missouri, you're probably not gonna be able to get PROVEL. And the flavors of this unique cheese blend here, the B-Man blend, totally work. You kind of get into the same ballpark and you're gonna have fun. Either way, thin crust pizza, lots of toppings is a really dope way to live your life. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about this. Did I get it right? Did I screw it up? I don't know. As always, guys, if you like this video, give it a like, hit subscribe, turn the bell for notifications. We'll see you next time.